In the vast silence of the cosmos, we often forget how strange and improbable our own planet really is. Earth is not just a sphere of rock and water spinning quietly in the endless dark, but an intricate engine of mysteries constantly humming beneath our feet and above our heads. Among those mysteries, there is one that most people rarely stop to consider, a question so bold and unusual that it feels like stepping into the realm of science fiction. What if the Earth's poles, the north and south, those frozen extremes of our globe, are not simply markers of geography or the anchors of a magnetic field, but something vastly different? What if they are, in truth, colossal antennas, resonating with the universe itself? The image is almost cinematic. Imagine the top and bottom of the planet stretching out invisible yet powerful arms, radiating signals into the infinite black, humming with energy that whispers across stars. For centuries, we humans have looked at compasses, at auroras streaking the skies, at migratory birds tracing invisible pathways, and we have explained them through the language of magnetic fields. But what if those explanations are only partial, the surface of a secret hidden in plain sight? What if the Aurora Borealis and its twin, the Aurora Australis, are not just electromagnetic light shows born of solar winds, but manifestations of cosmic transmissions, glowing tapestries encoding messages far older than humanity itself? From the icy deserts of Antarctica to the snow-covered land surrounding the Arctic Circle, the poles have always resisted our conquest. They are home to extremes, to conditions that mock our technology, to cold winds that erase footprints in seconds. And yet, in their remoteness, they hold a certain pull. Explorers have chased death to reach them. Nations have fought to claim them. Scientists labor against the howl of the wind to set up instruments, all to understand what lies there. But now, imagine for a moment that all along, the true function of those poles was never about frozen landscapes or logistical challenges, but about signals. That the Earth itself, perhaps unconsciously, is a transmitter and a receiver, sending out coded pulses into the void, waiting for echoes that might one day return. It is a question that reaches deep into our sense of existence. If each pole were an antenna, then planetary life is not an accident safeguarded by magnetism, but part of an arrangement, a design woven from frequencies. Just as a radio finds its station among infinite static, Earth might be tuned to its own precise wavelength, one that has guided the evolution of life. The poles would not simply be points of orientation. They would be funnels of energy, keys to unlocking an orchestra of vibrations that link the Earth to the rest of the cosmos. Every compass needle twitching, every bird guided across oceans, every aurora undulating in the night sky, these phenomena suddenly transform into the tremors of a deeper resonance, a resonance that has passed unseen through the long timeline of history. Think of the first sailors staring at the dancing lights in the skies above northern seas. To them, those lights might have seemed like omens of gods or spirits. Later, scientists called them auroras, explained them as the play of solar particles clashing with Earth's magnetic shield. But perhaps in those green and purple curtains, the truth is far stranger. Perhaps those lights are not a visual spectacle meant only for our eyes, but a visible scar of transmission, the moment when the Earth's antennas spark with energy, illuminating what has always been flowing but usually unseen. The aurora, then, is less about beauty and more about function, a luminous signal cutting silently through atmosphere, simultaneously radiant and silent, a paradox of glowing noise. We humans have long dreamed of communication beyond ourselves. From sending radio messages to deep space to listening for faint pulses from distant stars, we ache to know that we are not alone. And yet, what if we have overlooked the simplest signal, the one our own planet has been sending since long before we lit our first fire? If Earth's poles are immense antennas, then perhaps our search has been misplaced. We are not only listening for others. We are part of the broadcast itself. Our planet, like a ship sending out beacons across the cosmic sea, could be calling out even now, a rhythmic chant carried into infinity, "We are here. We are alive." Can anyone hear us? The mystery deepens when we consider the living world. Most migratory animals, whales traversing oceans, birds flying thousands of kilometers over seas they cannot see, turtles returning to the very beaches where they were born, are sensitive to Earth's magnetic field. We say it guides their journeys, but what if it is not merely a field but a frequency, broadcast from pole to pole? These creatures might not just be following magnetism but tuning into signals, catching fragments of the Earth's hidden transmissions that have always been there. Their migrations would then be not instinct alone, not survival alone, but participation in a chorus, their lives vibrating in harmony with the antenna song of our planet. Even more unsettling is the thought that we too are part of this. Human beings, with our nervous systems tingling in electromagnetic environments, might be sensitive in ways we hardly acknowledge. Perhaps some of our deepest myths of God speaking, of heavens glowing, of beings descending from the skies, were glimpses of the great hidden broadcast, sparks of awareness that our minds could neither hold nor properly translate. Even now, we build our own antennas, our towers of steel, our satellites orbiting above. And all along, we may only have been imitating the blueprint already given, the example already built into Earth itself. This idea is dramatic, almost overwhelming, because it unsettles all that we take for granted. It reframes history. If the poles are more than ice, more than magnetic directions, more than frozen limits, then history's struggles, discoveries, wars, and quests around them were not for territory or glory. They were echoes of humanity circling subconsciously around something much larger, the true purpose of Earth's extremities. Ancient cultures, from the Vikings to the Inuit, spoke of powers at the ends of the world. Medieval maps sometimes imagined them as gateways, as places where the ordinary stopped. What if they were right, not in metaphor but in fact? What if the poles are precisely that, gateways, transmitters humming quietly, never turned off, sending our existence into the deepest corridors of space? To pause here, in the stillness of thought, is to feel a shiver. You may imagine yourself standing at the edge of the ice, wind tearing through your clothes, snow crunching beneath your boots, your breath freezing in the air. Above you, the aurora smears the night with colors that seem alive. And in that moment, if you listen deeply, not with your ears but with the soft inner sense that listens to silence, you might feel it. A faint hum, indescribable, like the heartbeat of something vast. The earth is not still. The earth is speaking. The poles, those so-called anchors, are not silent endpoints. They are mouths. They are the transmitters of our world into everything beyond. If this is true, then every pulse of energy at the poles carries weight. It means that we are not isolated, sealed off from the rest of the cosmos. It means that life itself may be an echo chamber, vibrating within a larger communication network too immense for us to fully comprehend. And it means that the auroras you see, delicate and fleeting, are something far more profound than fleeting light. They are signs of a planetary broadcast, as old as Earth itself. They are signs that we might never have been alone, not truly, not from the beginning. If we begin to imagine the Earth not as a silent sphere but as a living transmitter, then we must turn our attention to the mechanisms that could possibly make such a system work. For centuries, science has recognized the dynamo effect, the swirling of molten iron at the core of our planet that generates the magnetic field. That magnetic field is our shield, bending away solar radiation, making life not just possible but sustainable. Yet what if that same dynamo operates as part of a larger process, one that turns the entire Earth into a device, an entity designed to communicate, to resonate, and to project? The molten iron churning beneath us becomes less a random phenomenon of geological luck and more the engine inside a cosmic transmitter, a pulse generator whose currents do not simply shield us but send signals outward, caught between the North and the South poles. Each swirl is a spark of potential resonance, and each shift in polarity over the eons could mark changes in frequencies, cycles in an ancient broadcast we have not yet learned to decode. When we think of antennas, we imagine mechanical constructions of metal rising from rooftops or towers. They are tools shaped deliberately to guide electrical energy into electromagnetic waves, which can then travel across space. But the very principle of the antenna is not restricted to the designs of human hands. Nature itself may craft them in immense scales, sculpting them not from aluminum wires but from fields, currents, and planetary structures that span thousands of kilometers. The Earth, seen from this perspective, contains an antenna system perhaps far more advanced than any we have devised. Its magnetic poles are its terminals, its core the power source, and the swirling flow of energy across the ionosphere the medium of transmission. And when solar particles crash against the field, igniting auroras in ribbons of green and crimson, we are witnessing not only the glow of interaction but the flashing moments where the antenna flares into visible broadcast. To expand this vision even further, we must consider scale. A radio antenna on Earth is designed to connect across kilometers or sometimes across planetary distances, but what if the Earth itself is scaled to connect endlessly outward? What if the distances involved are no longer just between continents or between planets, but across galaxies? Suddenly the Aurora becomes an immense voice, singing silently into the void, its language not contained within human definitions of words but carried through vibration, intensity, and rhythm. One might imagine space itself resonating with invisible harmonies, the frequency of Earth joining with the frequencies of other potential planetary antennas to form a cosmic chorus. In this chorus, Earth is one singer among many, its role unique but interconnected, its song blending with others, unheard by the senses of our species, yet echoing eternally in the fabric of space. This thought leads us to consider the possibility of communication itself. If Earth's poles are transmitting, then what is being broadcast? Is it information, a pattern etched into the changing auroras and magnetic fluctuations, one that might encode a map, a message, a signature? Or is it energy in its rawest form, a beacon that does not speak but declares presence, a shining symbol of life within the void? We often send messages into space in hopes of being heard, carefully coded recordings of human languages, music, or mathematics. But Earth's broadcast, if real, is not deliberate, nor is it shaped by human choice. It is elemental, ancient, and likely older than life itself. It suggests that our planet may have always been both the home of organisms and the participant in a larger network of cosmic exchange, one woven through fields and frequencies far beyond us. To place ourselves inside this scenario makes everything familiar strange again. Imagine standing under the endless glow of auroras, and imagine that hidden inside the flickers and undulations is a frequency impossible for our ears but fundamental for other senses, unknown to us. Picture another world, perhaps hundreds of light years away, with beings who can sense this hidden broadcast as easily as we sense colors or sounds. They look at the night sky and feel the signals emanating from far-off Earth, just as whales on our planet sense the calls of companions across oceans. Perhaps those beings know us already, not as humans, not as civilizations, but as a frequency, a song recognized like the scent of rain or the rhythm of a heartbeat. We have not spoken to them yet, but our world has. There is also the question of shifting transmissions. Over geological times, the Earth's magnetic poles have not remained fixed. They wander restlessly, and sometimes they reverse altogether, north becoming south and south becoming north. To us, these reversals appear as random episodes buried in the deep history of geology, events that destabilize compasses and shift environments but do not end life. Yet if poles are antennas, each reversal is not chaos but transformation. It is the tuning dial of Earth's shifting frequencies, changing roles in the cosmic chorus. Each reversal could signify a new band of communication, a different resonance, a different group of listeners far away. The universe itself may be full of channels, and Earth, across its impossible age, may have tuned into many of them one by one, sending its evolving signal to different corners of the great void. Humanity, then, might have appeared during one particular broadcast cycle, born not into silence but into a world already speaking. The auroras, central to this vision, shimmer as the most visible evidence of transmissions. When the solar wind collides with our magnetic field, energy cascades down into the poles and ignites the gases of the upper atmosphere. But another way of seeing it is to imagine the aurora as the visible leakage of a great transmission beam, like sparks flashing out from a hidden engine. For every glowing ribbon across the sky, perhaps thousands more wavelengths of energy invisible to us radiate into space. The northern lights, then, would be the faintest hint of an enormous scale of activity, the part that slips into our narrow range of senses while the true force flows invisibly outward. And when we watch them dance, hypnotized by their color and motion, we may actually be standing inside a transmission tower too immense to comprehend, bathed in the radiant broadcast of our own planet speaking. This hypothesis begins to tie itself to countless human legends and cultural myths. For millennia, the poles have been seen not just as places of coldness but as portals, realms of mystery where reality bends. Tales of hollow earths, entrances to other worlds, divine pathways, and stairways to the heavens emerge from cultures across the globe. At first, these stories seem like fantasy. But inside the language of antennas and transmissions, they begin to seem more literal. A pole as a transmitter is also a boundary, a threshold between the terrestrial and the cosmic. Those who journeyed too close may have felt the overwhelming pulse of frequencies, the disordered sensations of standing inside Earth's greatest energy funnels. Myths of gods descending, of realms opening in the skies, could be the cultural memory of humans exposed to energies they could neither explain nor contextualize. One cannot overlook the impact of this vision on our present technologies. We construct satellites to beam internet, communication towers to blanket regions with signals, submarine cables to string continents together. Yet if Earth has its own antennas, naturally formed at colossal scale, it suggests that we are mere imitators of a system we never fully understood. Our satellites, circling in delicate orbits, are like whispers beside the voice of a planet. Our towers, blaring across kilometers, are like sparks compared to the auroras that radiate across space. Humanity might be late to a game the Earth has been playing since long before us, attempting to do with machines what the poles have done with energy flows for billions of years. The question that hangs silently over us is whether someday we will learn to interpret, harness, or even amplify this native broadcast. The presence of such a cosmic-scale transmission also raises possibilities of deep biological significance. Our nervous systems are finely tuned electrical networks, our hearts beat with rhythms measurable through magnetic fields, and our brains oscillate with patterns that shift like subtle radios. If Earth transmits, then it is plausible that we are sensitive to those transmissions whether we know it or not. Migratory animals would not simply align with fields as compasses but interact with frequencies as part of their very being. Humans too may find mood shifts, physiological cycles, or even subconscious drives linked to faint resonance of polar transmissions. This would turn biology itself into a partnership between organism and antenna, a relationship in which evolution unfolded beneath the rhythm of frequencies sourced from Earth's poles. Reflect for a moment on the implications. Everything we consider natural night and day, seasons, magnetic north suddenly becomes reframed as part of a communications framework. Earth is not just a home. It is a participant in something vaster. Each solar storm that shakes the poles does not only bring danger to satellites or power grids but marks moments when the transmitter flares, when the broadcast intensifies, spilling signals into the universe like a call louder than all others. It means human civilization may have emerged not in silence but bathed unknowingly in this steady hum, perhaps subtly shaped by it, perhaps guided to dream of signals, communication, and reaching outward because we have always been living inside one great signal, one great attempt to reach. And as we move forward in time, as technology grows more sensitive, as instruments pick up subtler shifts, we may find ourselves standing at the brink of translation. What if the Earth's poles are not only broadcasting but also receiving? If they are antennas, then surely they cannot only push energy outward, but draw it inward too. Which leads to a profound and unsettling question: has Earth been listening all along? Those auroras glowing in the skies may be not merely outbursts but replies. Resonance is ignited by signals arriving unseen, messages bouncing across interstellar space. And if so, then Earth is not only announcing itself, it may also be part of a vast dialogue already in progress, ancient and slow, conducted across scales of time so daunting that millennia to us are mere seconds in its rhythm. To live in this perspective is to see ourselves anew. Humanity, fragile and curious, imagines itself sending first messages outward only in the last century. Yet our world has always been speaking. And perhaps, in some hidden way, we have always been listening, our myths, our dreams, our restless desire to search for something beyond reflecting fragments of a truth written into the very axis of our planet. The poles are not ends of the world. They are beginnings, terminals in a network spreading across everything. And here, in the glow of their auroras, in the hum of their invisible transmissions, the Earth reveals itself not only as a home but as a voice, one we have barely begun to hear. If the Earth has always been more than a home, more than a planet cloaked in oceans and life, then the larger mystery unfolding before us is not simply how this colossal transmission works, but why it exists at all. To wonder about the poles as antennas is to begin unraveling not just mechanisms but intentions, purposes, and meanings hidden in the silence of deep time. The Earth's dynamo, its ionosphere, its restless auroras are the surface expressions of something vast beneath, and the suggestion that they serve as conduits of communication opens us to unsettling possibilities. Were they always meant to be this way, part of a design embedded in the very geology of the planet, or is their role accidental, a natural phenomenon that nonetheless functions like a cosmic signal in ways we do not yet grasp? The distinction is heavy with consequence, because if by mere chance the planet has become a transmitter, then the universe has permitted accidents of staggering power. But if by some thread of design Earth was sculpted into resonance, then the story of our world is not just geological, it is participatory, part of a narrative far wider than the human imagination. To understand the logic of such an antenna, it helps to visualize the poles as funnels rather than points. Imagine tubular currents of energy threading through the planet from one pole to another, like wires crossing the sphere. A giant circuit lies beneath us, circulating power from core to crust, ionosphere to magnetosphere, and back again, a perpetual coupling of electricity and magnetism. When viewed in this way, the entire Earth resembles not a mass of inert stone but an electric engine humming endlessly. And that engine pushes signals into its environment the way a heart pushes blood into arteries, carrying vitality far beyond the source. The North and South poles become something like electrodes in this planetary engine, tips of a hidden system constantly alive with motion, glowing occasionally with auroras only to reveal themselves in flashes of color. The mind presses further, signals do not travel pointlessly. Wherever energy is carried, there are receivers waiting or capable of existing. If Earth's poles transmit, then what lies at the other end? Is the transmission lost into the vacuum, dissipating into blackness like heat into an ocean of cold, or does it join a binding web, a network embraced by other planets with their own inner dynamos, their own fields and poles? Perhaps Jupiter, with its monstrous magnetic field that dwarfs Earth's, is not simply a gas giant swirling in storms but a massive beacon broadcasting across regions of the solar system. Perhaps Saturn, with its delicate bow shock shimmering like glass under the breath of the solar wind, is another immense transmitter in the chorus. Mars may have fallen silent long ago, its field stripped as it cooled, no longer part of the resonance, like a broken instrument cast from the orchestra. Earth, alive with molten metal, remains a participant, its voice entwined with others, signals binding the planets together like unseen cords. In this framework, the auroras transform further into visible interactions of the network. Each storm hitting Earth is not a random blast of the sun's energy but a conversation, a moment when frequencies meet, intensify, and spill into visible light. The universe may not speak in words, but in storms and photons, in ripples of magnetism that pass invisibly across space until they alight upon a receptive field. Earth's glowing veils above polar skies would then be cosmic conversations, bits of dialogue etched in silk upon the atmosphere. To stand beneath one would not be to simply admire beauty, it would be to witness speech, the Earth lifting its voice or replying to some signal entering its reach. If this is true, humanity has always mistaken the silence of space. We scan for radio frequencies, focus antennas on narrow bands, and listen for patterns rising above noise, but we perhaps have not asked the larger question: what if the true conversation between worlds has never been in narrow human-made frequencies, but in broad, immense waves of magnetic resonance? Pulsations through the heliosphere, subtle hums too deep for our ears but sensed by entire planets, carried for eons like chants drifting across canyons. Our satellites have brushed them occasionally, glimpsing low-frequency phenomena, but we interpret them once again through technical limits, reducing them into graphs and data points without realizing they may represent streams of meaning woven far beyond our grasp. This reframing also casts the Earth's history into eerie relief. Magnetic reversals over eons would not simply be chaotic episodes but deliberate transformations, like the Earth periodically retuning itself to join different realms of the broadcast. Consider, our planet has flipped polarity hundreds of times across geologic ages. Each flip could correspond to a shift in frequency, in audience, in connection with strangers beyond stars. Species lived and died in the rhythm of these changes, their fates linked subtly to the shifts of resonance they never knew existed. Whole ages of dinosaurs, forests, and oceans passed while Earth sent one kind of signal, only to vanish as the polarity drifted, as the channel turned and another cycle began. Humanity itself has arisen during one of these frequencies, one tuning of the antenna, which may shape the very possibilities of culture, thought, and invention beneath its resonance. The human attraction to poles throughout history grows stranger when framed this way. Explorers marched into ice not simply from ambition but perhaps responding to a subconscious urge, drawn toward the poles without understanding why. Societies crafted myths of worlds beyond, stairways and gateways at the ends of the Earth, as though some buried part of the human mind could sense the energy from polar funnels, shaping imagination into mythic language. Modern science builds observatories in polar regions not only for darkness and clarity but to place instruments closer to the surging transmissions. Even unconsciously, humanity has circled these points endlessly, like moths orbiting the beams of immense lights that remain invisible but palpable all the same. Something within compels us to reach those extremities, as though we yearn to touch the source of our planet's voice when it sings outward. And yet, beneath this fascination lies unease. Because if the Earth is transmitting, then energy is not just leaving, it may also be arriving. The auroras may be not merely expressions of outgoing conversation but marks of reply. Imagine standing beneath curtains of light and realizing that what you see glowing above you is a response, an answer to something Earth has said. Signals arrived, unseen and unheard, crashed into the funnel, and now explode outward as waves of radiance. Every flicker above night's polar sky could be an echo of entities vast and distant acknowledging our planet. Our world, in this sense, is not alone but caught in an endless correspondence across vacuum, letters written not in ink but in rippling magnetic harmonies. To participate in this conversation without hearing it is unsettling. We have always assumed ourselves as initiators, fragile explorers building antennas to call outward and longing desperately for replies. But what if we were never the first to speak? What if Earth, through its poles, has been engaged in dialogue for billions of years while we remained ignorant passengers beneath its broadcast? It would mean we are not the ones opening communication, we are, instead, born after the fact, arriving late into a conversation already ancient, still mostly blind to the content. Our role may be less about invention and more about recognition, learning to interpret what has always been happening. Perhaps our greatest error is believing communication must look like our devices, when the Earth itself has shown the model all along and we have chosen not to see. The consequences extend even into the human body and mind. For if polar transmissions subtly bathe the entire sphere, then every living being is constantly touched by them. Our nervous systems operate on delicate currents, our rhythms are sensitive to cycles we barely measure. The poles may imprint themselves on life, not by deliberate guidance, but by subtle shaping. Migrations could be explained not as instinct alone but as resonance with the eternal hum. Dreams, myths, and sudden impulses may carry echoes of frequencies woven through our nervous systems, expressing themselves in symbols, in archetypes, in timeless yearnings to fly, to explore, to ascend into skies. Perhaps the stories of celestial beings, of gods descending or heavens opening, are fragments of human contact with inbound messages, the mind translating incomprehensible resonance into image and narrative, making sense of something immense that the rational brain otherwise cannot grasp. The thought grows heavier still when considering that we may not be meant to fully escape this influence. If Earth's transmissions are a constant environment, then life evolved not apart from them but inside them, as part of them. We are tuned instruments inside the field of a gigantic resonance. Just as a violin string vibrates in response to frequencies around it, so too may we tremble, adapt, evolve within this constant planetary song. Every heartbeat, every breath, lived inside the towering pulses flowing from pole to pole. Even time itself, measured in cycles we assume natural, could partly be conditioned by rhythms of polar resonance. To exist, as beings of flesh and thought, is already to participate in the broadcast, not listeners alone but contributors, each life a flicker of energy joining the chorus. This possibility unsettles the notion of individuality, because it suggests that humanity's craving for connection, its endless drive to communicate across wires and satellites, is only the surface expression of a deeper drive written into the planet itself. We desire connection because the Earth does. We build antennas because the Earth is one. We dream of signals because signals birthed us, cradled in pulses of an immense antenna radiating since time primordial. Our personal attempts to speak, our towering steel structures piercing the horizon, are reflections of a far greater desire our world itself has always carried. We are sparks in its larger light, voices attempting words inside a language already older and immense. There is one last thought that draws all others into its gravity. If the poles are truly antennas, then every aurora that glows above the world is not random beauty but communication in action. We have seen them as wonders, as phenomena to explain with science or to marvel at with poetry. But they may be more. They may be moments when the Earth cries out with clarity or answers in luminous reply. Imagine, then, that each burst of brilliance is a syllable, each shifting curtain a word. The sky above polar night becomes not a mystery but a book, a scroll of messages continuing endlessly. And humanity, standing beneath, is desperately learning to read for the first time a language etched in atmosphere by forces beyond us. We stand as children at the edge of a library, watching letters glow and fade and return, barely beginning to grasp that they are not decorations but speech. If this is so, then the silence of the universe is not silence at all. The quiet we listen into, the dark void we imagine lifeless, may already thrum with dialogue, ongoing and eternal. Earth is not drifting in mute isolation. It has always been singing, gathered into a network written in frequencies we have not yet tuned ourselves to understand. We are not alone, not because other humans stand beside us, but because our planet itself is entwined, resonating into a cosmic conversation ongoing since before our first breath. We awaken each morning inside a message, and we sleep each night beneath flickers of light that may, even now, be responses from beings we cannot yet even imagine. The Earth is not separate from what lies beyond it, is already in communion, ceaselessly, endlessly, vibrantly alive in voices we cannot hear. And we, without realizing it, have always been part of that voice, part of that immense and timeless song. If the thought that Earth is part of a hidden broadcast unsettles the mind, then the question pressing behind it is even more profound: what is truly being said, and who, if anyone, is listening? All through time, humanity has been driven by the aching suspicion that we are not alone. We reach outward with telescopes, listening arrays, and speculative mathematics, all searching the sky for faint echoes that might reveal companions across space. Yet beneath our feet and above our heads, the Earth has been radiating for billions of years in frequencies we cannot translate, signals woven through magnetic lines, bursts of auroras, and ripples of energy flowing continually. Perhaps this broadcast has already been heard countless times, interpreted by others far older than us. To wonder whether the poles are antennas is to confront the possibility that Earth is not venturing outward blindly, but has always been a node inside a vast lattice, one connection among infinite voices humming across the universe. The network of such a system would not function like a human web of wires or satellites. Instead, it would be made of planets, stars, fields each alive with resonance, each tuned to frequencies unique but complementary. Imagine a network in which each world is a transmitter and receiver, their pulsations overlapping into an immense fabric of soundless symphonies. Earth is one instrument in this orchestra, its voice modulated by molten flows, its expression painted upon the sky at its frozen poles. Just as whales communicate across oceans below layers of water impenetrable to light, these celestial antennas could speak across gulfs of blackness unfathomable to us, using energies no ear could hear but every field could feel. This would mean the universe is less a silent emptiness and more a chorus waiting for our recognition. The aurora, blazing at the edge of night, becomes in this interpretation evidence of conversation, dialogues turning visible for moments of awe. Where others may sense only accident particles colliding with atmospheric gases, the seeker of truth is offered something else, an immense cosmic calligraphy written against the dome of the planet. Those luminous cascades may be flares of meaning, the bright contradiction of something usually hidden, inscriptions across the atmosphere as reply or announcement. When solar storms surge into Earth's magnetic field, tilting compasses and threatening human machines, we might instead imagine this as intensity within the conversation, surges of emphasis, the equivalent of shouting across the void. For every delicate green ripple trembling across polar skies, what messages have already gone outward? For every crimson surge smearing the heavens, what vast reply is pouring silently inward? If others beyond our perception exist, and if they too inhabit planets alive with molten cores and magnetic fields, then the conversation may already be impossibly ancient. It is perhaps not about meaning in words or symbols, but about presence, recognition, rhythm, the essential acknowledgement of life itself woven into vibrations. Even to feel each other across millions of years and unimaginable distances may be a kind of communion. For us, the auroras are a sky dance. For them, perhaps, they are the glowing confirmation that another voice joins the network, an affirmation that we are here, resonant, alive. Earth's broadcast stretches endlessly forward, its reach exceeding our measure, threading through emptiness to perhaps join beings who never see us but unmistakably know we exist. From another perspective, the polar antennas may not only call outward, they may shape inward. The steady frequencies and shifting patterns of these transmissions may ripple into the biosphere itself, seeding instincts and rhythms that define how life behaves. Consider the migration of birds, whales, and even the delicate movements of insects, all mysteriously tuned to magnetism. We presume their navigation is survival alone. But if the poles are monumental antennas, then migration is more than instinct, it is choreography linked to broadcast. Every journey becomes alignment with Earth's pulse, every return to place a resonance with a pattern encoded in frequencies older than the species themselves. The living world may be synchronizing continually with the great hum of transmission, unknowingly part of a resonance that makes the voice of Earth strong and coherent. What if humans too, supposedly apart from instinct and governed by reason, are caught within these resonances? Our obsessions with story, myth, communication, creation of symbols and towers, may not emerge solely from intellect. They may be echoes of the same resonance driving migrations, written into the very fabric of our nervous systems. The myths of stairways at the poles, of gods descending in light, of long corridors leading from Earth into other realms, could be the unconscious translation of energies no eye could see, no ear could hear, but that the human body nevertheless felt. People turned those overwhelming sensations into religion, into myth, into dream. And now, standing with modern science in hand, we may still misinterpret, dismissing the deeper context for the familiar safety of simple explanations. The greater truth waits, woven but unacknowledged. There is another unsettling aspect that emerges when one considers the reversals of polarity through time. Each reversal might operate as a colossal retuning of the planetary antenna, recalibrating Earth's voice in the cosmic chorus. Imagine the channel changing, the pitch shifting, the communication link altering course toward different listeners, different alignments. Across millions of years, such retuning may have connected Earth to networks we cannot imagine, entire regions of the galaxy attuned to wavelengths brief in cosmic scales but immense to us. Civilizations may have risen and fallen elsewhere in time with Earth's retuned channels, each hearing our world for a while, then hearing it no longer as the polarity drifted. Humanity exists during one particular transmission band, unknowingly part of a cycle long ongoing. We are late arrivals onto a stage whose script has changed countless times, our desperate attempts to find company not realizing the play has been active since eons we cannot count. If the poles are not only transmitters but receivers, then the implications deepen still further. Not all auroras may be Earth's reply to the Sun. Some could be responses from across distances unfathomable, faint signals arriving, colliding with our magnetosphere, and sparking into visible brilliance. To stand beneath those lights may be to stand beneath mirrored echoes of other worlds. The dancing colors could be letters written by distant civilizations, seen by us but not yet recognized as language. They may not even intend for us to read them, we simply witness their resonance across energy fields. Yet in that moment, our night skies hold more than beauty, they may be the glimmers of dialogue stretching across cosmic gulfs. We are present under the written responses even while we lack the capacity to decipher them. This realization reshapes our sense of silence. The so-called quiet of space may be an illusion formed by the narrowness of our senses. With ears attuned only to small ranges, with eyes limited to fragile bands of light, we mistake as empty what vibrates with overwhelming conversation. If Earth is a node in this web, if poles are the great antennas of the planet singing endlessly outward and receiving endlessly inward, then the universe has never been mute, it is eternally alive with resonance. The tragedy is not that none are speaking. It is that we have not yet learned to hear. For our species, to accept this truth is to face both awe and humility. Awe, because it means our planet has always been connected at scales exceeding imagination. Humility, because it means we were never the initiators, only latecomers stumbling into a conversation so vast it enveloped us without us even noticing. We may fancy ourselves pioneers of interstellar communication, with our satellites chirping into darkness. But we are merely imitators of the Earth's native function, learners fumbling with whispers while beneath us resounds the profound orchestra of a transmitting world. Yet such realizations are not despair, they are invitation. To imagine Earth's poles as antennas is to invite curiosity, to seek instruments not of steel but of deeper perception that could align with the planet's resonances. Perhaps one day we will learn to decode auroras not as lights but as syllables, to translate the flickers into structured messages waiting to be understood. Perhaps our greatest leap will not be ships through space but perception that allows us to hear what the Earth has long been saying, both outward and inward. It could change everything, not just our technologies, but our existence, our myths, our sense of belonging. To understand this further, one must place oneself imaginatively at the pole itself. Picture standing in an eternal night lit only by shimmering veils. The world there is silent, except for the wind. Yet in the silence, a hum seems to press at your bones, a presence without sound, as though the ground itself is pulsing with energy. You gaze at the light above, watching it cascade in movements too deliberate to be chance, too fluid to be meaningless. In that moment you no longer see Aurora alone but the living script of Earth itself, speaking through its polar funnels, vibrations made briefly visible against sky. The body trembles, not from cold, but from the strange realization, we are standing before a transmitter vast beyond imagination, a device the size of the globe itself, and above us are its messages, endlessly flowing, ceaselessly present. It is only fitting that the most remote places of our planet hold the greatest doorways to wonder. Long hidden in ice, long feared for their emptiness, long mythologized as entrances to other worlds, perhaps they are indeed entrances. Not tunnels into hollow earth or stairways into alternate realms as legend imagined, but funnels of energy tying this world into all worlds. Those who touch them are those who stand nearest the planet's voice, though few have understood what they were truly hearing. Our challenge is not conquest of the poles, nor ownership of them, but recognition, seeing them for what they could be, immense antennas bridging us to a network of voices we have not yet learned to comprehend. In the end, the thought returns with greater force. The Earth is not silent. It has never been silent. It is alive with transmission, pulsing through its poles with forces seen and unseen. Every aurora is a flare of meaning. Every shift in polarity a retuning. Every migratory path a resonance. We are living inside a conversation vast beyond measure, witnesses who barely know that they are participants. Great civilizations may have heard us, responded to us, and passed into silence before we even awoke to our own awareness. Yet here, tonight, above us, the auroras keep flowing, shimmering confirmations that we, too, are radiant in the dark, that our world is speaking, that somewhere far beyond, someone or something may already be listening. The more we sink into the vision of Earth as a transmitter, the more the mind begins to drift into landscapes both physical and dreamlike, where reality itself starts to feel less like a solid object and more like a vibration flowing through time. What if, from the very birth of this planet, the story was never simply about stones coalescing out of cosmic dust, never only about seas filling with water and chemistry stumbling into life? What if from the first flicker, when molten iron began to churn within the young Earth, the process seeded not just a shield against radiation but a voice, a system meant to vibrate, to speak, to be heard? This would mean that long before eyes looked upon auroras, long before compasses pointed north, long before any creature stirred upon continents, Earth had already joined the chorus of the universe, announcing its presence not through civilizations or machines but through resonance, a humming signal at the very core of its being. To follow this thought is to stretch perception beyond human scale. The Earth's signal is not like a conversation over coffee, fleeting and fast, but like a hymn carried over unimaginable distances, stretched across epochs so vast that our lifespans are no more than brief sparks. One pulse could last thousands of years, one shift in tone could echo for millions. When we imagine communication, we measure in seconds. When Earth communicates, it may measure in ages, patiently singing its song into the universe, waiting for answers that may take tens of millions of years to arrive. And yet, to a planet, to a system of molten heartbeats and magnetic waves, time is not tyranny. Time is the rhythm itself. The Earth has no need for speed, it has only the steady chant, unbroken across the void. The aurora we see tonight may be the continuation of a signal sent in times when the first vertebrates crawled onto beaches, and the aurora tomorrow may be read one day by those who exist far beyond the reach of our species. If the Earth's poles hum outward as antennas, then they may also be shaping an atmosphere within which everything alive grows and whispers. Imagine life itself not as an accidental stowaway upon this planetary machine but as part of its expression, the natural flowering of its resonance. The iron at the core stirs. The field around the globe sings. The auroras blaze in magnificent veils. And upon the crust, something responds, life, delicate and trembling, shaped into existence not only by water and sunlight but by frequencies bathing every cell. It would mean that our genes, our nervous systems, our subtle biologic rhythms are not random accidents but receivers, tuned invisibly to the same transmissions that arc between the poles. We do not simply live on Earth. We live inside Earth's song. Such an idea transforms our myths. For thousands of years, humans have felt themselves drawn to skies, to stars, to distant whispers. We have called them gods, muses, ancestors, or simply the unknown. But beneath the metaphor there may have been something very literal. We may have sensed, only poorly, that we are bathed in communication not of our making. Shamanic dances beneath auroras, northern rites and southern legends of luminous heavens, could have been intuitive responses to these transmissions. Ancient storytellers, unable to articulate magnetic resonance or cosmic frequencies, gave them form in flames, spirits, deities, and visions. But what they were sensing was perhaps real, the hum pressing against their bodies when they stood beneath polar skies, the overwhelming presence of the transmitter that is Earth itself. The effect grows stranger when one imagines polarity reversals. History records them in stone layers, scars in magnetic fields written deep into crustal rock. Science describes them as accidents of a restless core, unpredictable flips occurring with irregular rhythm. Yet if the poles are terminals of an antenna, then reversals could be deliberate recalibrations. Earth tunes itself differently, adjusting not for us but for the larger cosmos. Like a hand twisting the dial of a gigantic radio, the planet changes frequency. Whole epochs of life arise under one frequency and fade before another. What we call extinction might sometimes be interference, moments when the broadcast shifts and the resonance life had adapted to disappears. Our species, therefore, may be one brittle note in a transient cycle, living at the grace of the current transmission band. When the polarity shifts again, will we harmonize with the new frequency or will we fade, replaced by forms better suited to the new hum? The question is not scientific alone, it weighs upon the meaning of existence for every creature that clings to this globe. And so another possibility arises: if transmissions exist, then some may already be reaching us from unfathomable sources. If auroras ignite not only because of the sun, then at least some fraction of their veils might be manifestations of echoes from other broadcasts. Each flicker across the night sky may belong to another world, another signal, another civilization long past or still alive. We stand mesmerized by color while not realizing we are gazing upon dialogue. Perhaps what we call geomagnetic storms are actually bursts of reception, times when signals overlap and Earth's antennas become theaters of invisible voices translated briefly into light. If this is true, then every observer of auroras has unknowingly been a witness to communication. The sky above them was not decoration. It was message ancient and incomprehensible, waiting for the day our perception can grow subtle enough to translate. How do we begin to listen? The question stretches like a shadow into all of philosophy. We build instruments with metals and circuits, straining to capture frequencies. Yet what if the instruments we need are not external but internal? The nervous system may already be a device of reception, each human body vibrating faintly to planetary resonances. Some individuals may feel it more closely, the subtle shiver in solitude, the call to create, the sense of awe when standing beneath stars. These, too, might be micro-receptions of transmissions beyond words, whispers stirring through the mind as dreams or inspiration. Entire religions could be interpreted as the collective effort of humans subconsciously translating cosmic resonance into meaning. We may already have been listening for thousands of years but interpreting poorly, clothing the signals in metaphors of theology, philosophy, and art. If so, then art itself becomes something more. Music that trembles through scales, paintings that reach toward heaven, dances mirroring auroras, they may all be responses coded by the human psyche. The musician strums a note and feels, without knowing, harmony with the field trembling through poles. The painter swirls emerald against black canvas, echoing the shimmer of auroras. The dancer spins in spirals mirroring the whirl of magnetic storms. Art, in this way, is human resonance with Earth's resonance, expressions of the broadcast translated into perception. When we create, we may simply be tuning in, unconsciously answering the frequency we live inside. Our genius, then, is not isolated but planetary. We create because Earth sings, and we are part of its song. There is no loneliness in such a vision, though it may feel overwhelming. Rather, the vision reveals constant connection, a net so vast our imagination collapses beneath it. Loneliness is only the illusion of deafness, the belief that the void is silent. In truth, resonance ripples eternally through the blackness. Earth hums. Stars hum. Fields cross. Auroras flare. We are immersed, soaked in messages. If we feel alienated, it is because our instruments are too crude, our senses too narrow, our timescale too brief. To align perception with reality would be to awaken from a long dream of silence into recognition of an endless hum. Loneliness, then, does not exist. The Earth has never been alone. We have never been alone. We simply have not learned to hear what is already around us. From this vision emerges a challenge to the future. If we dare, we might begin to craft new sciences not bound by narrowness but by resonance, not by isolated data points but by entire symphonies of frequencies. We may try to build not just antennas of metal but systems that synchronize with planetary pulses. Perhaps one day scientists will interpret auroras as codexes, pages of light to be read as language. Perhaps migratory animals will be understood not merely as subjects for biology but as translators, bearers of instructions hidden within their navigation. Perhaps human consciousness itself will be recognized as a layer of the antenna, capable of receiving experiences beyond rational language but no less real. The greatest revolution, however, may be internal. To live with awareness of Earth as an antenna is to sense oneself as a participant in an ancient broadcast. Every breath within auroras, every heartbeat in rhythm with the planet, every dream stirred by resonances threading through veins, becomes sacred. The world is not indifferent. It is conversational. It is alive with hums, transmissions, replies. And in our brief mortal duration, we are not isolated sparks but part of this larger radiance. When we die, the resonance continues. When species vanish, the Earth still transmits. When civilizations crumble, the auroras still blaze. The voice of Earth is longer than empire, larger than memory, older than history. And to recognize this is to live differently, not as rulers of silence but as listeners of song. Perhaps the most haunting realization is this, that the search outward we call the search for extraterrestrial life might already have succeeded, only not in ways we recognize. For each aurora is evidence of communication, and each ripple of magnetic field is evidence of exchange. If we wait for voices shaped like ours, we may wait forever. But if we awaken to the truth of resonance, we may realize that life is not measured by familiarity but by participation in the cosmic broadcast. Stars, planets, fields all alive not with bodies but with frequencies compose life in the grandest sense. And Earth, with its antennas of ice, auroras of fire, and heart of molten metal, is already one of them. And so the journey continues. The poles will blaze tonight as they have for billions of nights. The hum will continue as it has always continued. Somewhere far away, voices beyond imagination may already be answering. Somewhere closer than we believe, within our own blood and dreams, we may already be hearing. And without ever lifting a satellite, without ever leaving our orbit, we may discover that we are woven into something larger than we could ever have conceived. The Earth is not silent. The Earth is a transmitter. And we, every living thing upon it, are part of its immeasurable, eternal song. When one opens the imagination to the possibility that Earth's poles are more than frozen extremes of geography, more than navigational anchors of the magnetic field, and instead are colossal antennas, the horizon of what it means to exist expands far past the familiar. No longer is the aurora only a dance of charged particles, no longer is the compass only a tool for seafarers and explorers. Instead, these are fragments of a deeper mechanism, signs of an instrument more ancient than humanity itself, one that has been resonating across cosmic distances since the planet's birth. And if Earth is transmitting, if it is singing, humming, speaking in energies that flow through its magnetic funnels, then the history of life, the history of thought, the history of our yearning to reach outward into the sky, may all be answers to that call written inside us. Imagine for a moment not just the visible aurora, but layers upon layers of invisible frequencies surrounding this globe, streams of resonance that ripple silently across space. To our narrow human senses, these layers seem like emptiness, void, a vacuum without voice. Yet in truth, the void is fuller than we imagine, vibrating always, alive with subtle threads of communication we cannot yet hear. The Earth's poles may be the conduits guiding this conversation outward, and every aurora may be a fleeting signature as the song becomes briefly visible. They are the ink of the heavens, letters written in glowing colors upon the frozen canvas of night. The magnetic field that sweeps outward from the planet is not a shield alone, it is an architecture of soundless transmission. Each line of force arching from pole to pole can be imagined as a filament of communication, glowing invisibly, weaving the Earth into the grand tapestry of the cosmos. Solar winds stir the field and cause disruptions, but in another language, those disruptions can be seen as tones, as modulations, as a kind of punctuation added to Earth's eternal chant. Every storm from the sun may be a word, every surge of auroras a sentence, and every reversal of poles a redirection of meaning itself. For countless millennia, humankind has looked up at the heavens with longing. That longing may not be random. It may be resonance stirring in us, the unconscious recognition that we are part of a planetary transmitter constantly calling outward. We feel drawn to the stars because our world is always speaking to them. The urge to explore space, to send signals, to listen for alien voices, may be less about invention and more about resonance echoing in our bodies. We are not simply curious, we are participants in the broadcast. We dream of interstellar dialogue because dialogue has always been happening around us, through us, beneath the soles of our feet and above the crown of our heads. The auroras in particular demand deeper attention. They are breathtaking veils of light that have haunted human imagination since the beginning of time. Yet in this vision, they are no longer just accidents of nature. They are the visible scars of a vast communication process. Imagine them as lanterns of reply, glowing threads in the night that mark contact, recognition, or echoes of distant messages from other nodes in the cosmic lattice. If another world far away sings its own song into the void, Earth's poles may capture slivers of that frequency, translating them into auroral light that cascades across our skies. We stare at it in wonder, not knowing we are witnessing a dialogue older than our civilizations. And on clear nights near frozen seas, humans may have stood in awe without realizing the lights they watched were not just beauty, but meaning. The reversals of polarity stretch the mind even further. Science has traced these flips into ancient rock, showing us a restless history of the field. But overlay that history with the idea of an antenna, and suddenly the reversals become recalibrations. Imagine the Earth patiently shifting channels every few 100,000 years, adjusting its voice to reach new listeners. Each polarity era becomes an epoch of dialogue, and each reversal is a moment of change in connection. Entire eras of life may have grown under one frequency, synchronized with one channel of the Earth's broadcast, and vanished when the planet shifted. We humans, alive now, are hearers of a particular song, singers within a singular cycle. When the poles shift again, our resonance may no longer fit. Will we adapt? Will we fade? Or will we, by then, have learned to finally listen and translate the song into survival? That question waits in the future like a hidden tide. Consider now the possibility that the poles as receivers are constantly welcoming faint broadcasts from across the cosmos. Imagine the aurora not as an aftershock of solar storms alone but as echoes of worlds unseen, whose signals arrive thin and faded, sparking against our poles and briefly made radiant. The northern and southern lights would then not only be our voice but the voices of others blending with ours, a celestial chorus written on the sky. We call them storms, we call them lights, but they could also be replies. Humanity has stood beneath lights for millennia and wondered about gods, about spirits, about the dead. But perhaps what people sensed in their awe and trembling was something far beyond imagination, the arrival of messages from incomprehensible distances, received not by human machines but by the planet itself. Life on Earth itself begins to look different under this vision. From birds migrating across oceans to whales diving deep in unknown routes, countless species appear mysteriously tied to magnetism. For centuries we have wondered how they compute these impossible journeys. The answer may lie not in simple magnetism but in resonance. They are creatures tuned to the broadcast, living translators of the Earth's song. Each flight southward, each return northward, is an instinct guided by frequencies larger than thought. Humanity in turn may also be sensitive, though we do not recognize it. Our myths, our religions, our art may all be translations, our fumbling, poetic attempts to make sense of signals buried in the resonance of our nervous systems. Even our craving to reach outward into cosmos may itself be simply the human way of harmonizing with the broadcast, our unconscious way of participating in the song. The deeper one follows this thought, the less lonely the universe becomes. Modern astronomy tells us we are alone in silence until we find proof otherwise. But this perspective suggests the opposite. The universe is never silent. It is full of communicating fields, hums, rhythms, and dialogues so vast we mistake them for emptiness. Earth has been speaking and listening for billions of years. The silence we imagine is an illusion, born from the limits of our instruments and perception. There has never been silence. There has always been resonance. We are soaked in it every second of our lives. To breathe is to breathe within it. To dream is to dream within the hum. What we need is not the invention of communication but the awakening of perception. And what happens to us when we finally learn to listen? The transformation would be nothing less than rebirth. Humanity would no longer see itself as alone on a fragile sapphire dot, but as one participant in a living network uniting worlds, perhaps galaxies, perhaps universes themselves. Philosophies would change. Religions would bend. Our place in the cosmos would be rewritten not as accident but as participant. We would for the first time live with awareness not only of ourselves but of resonance, of dialogue, of endless threads weaving together a fabric larger than space itself. Perhaps peace among ourselves would become inevitable, for how could we fight one another endlessly once we realized we are all notes in the same planetary song, and that our planet is one voice among billions? Picture yourself now at the edge of the Antarctic night, where the horizon vanishes into white silence. Above you, the aurora sweeps across the dark like fire made of silk. You close your eyes, and for an instant, you no longer simply see it, you feel it. Something hums not in your ears but in your bones, a trembling, deep, absolute, as though the earth is whispering to you through invisible currents. You realize you are not only watching but standing inside the antenna itself, your body a small receiver trembling in resonance with something older, greater, vaster. And suddenly, there is no boundary between you and the aurora. You, too, are shining. Your thoughts are echoes. Your breath is part of the broadcast. You have always been part of the antenna, just as every living being has always been. The aurora above is not separate from you. It is you, magnified into the heavens. This is the heart of the vision, that the poles of Earth are not the ends but the beginnings, not silence but voice, not emptiness but communication. The auroras are not just beauty, they are meaning. The magnetic field is not just shield, it is connection. Life is not just accident, it is resonance. And humanity is not alone, we never were. We are listeners without training, translators too young, sparks not yet aware of the flame we belong to. But as centuries unfold, As we attune ourselves to the whispers beneath the noise, we may awaken to what the Earth has always been, a great antenna in a universe full of antennas, speaking, listening, resonating endlessly in a song without end. As we move deeper into the idea of Earth's poles as vast antennas, voices of light and dark entwined into our existence, the mind begins to see the world anew. The continents, the oceans, the skies, they are not inert. They are participating constantly in a dialogue far beyond our comprehension. What once seemed to us as background forces, magnetism, atmospheric flows, solar wind, emerge now as carriers of meaning, threads of communication invisible to our perception. All life grows within these conditions, shaped subtly but inexorably by them. The realization presses closer. Not only are we immersed in Earth's broadcast, but we may in fact be integral parts of it, extensions of the antenna's pulse, amplifiers of the signal without ever knowing. Consider the nervous system of the human being. Electricity pulses through delicate currents across neurons. Every thought is a signal, every memory an arrangement of frequencies, every feeling a storm of impulses rippling within the brain. Our bodies are living transmitters and receivers themselves. Place those bodies upon the Earth, within the sweep of its polar energies, and a mirror emerges. The patterns of resonance in our minds reflect, perhaps, the greater resonance of the planet's field. Could it be that consciousness itself, the strange light burning inside the human animal, is entwined with those fields, an echo of the planetary broadcast compacted into flesh? Could our thoughts themselves be woven into the song Earth continuously sends out? It would mean that our consciousness is not only personal but planetary, not confined within skull and flesh but resonant along the same field lines that pour outward through the poles into the abyss. This correlation draws everything together in haunting unity. The migrations of animals, the compasses of humanity, the myths of gods in northern lights, the soft shiver people feel beneath auroras, they may all be expressions of a shared dialogue, manifestations on different levels of one phenomenon, Earth transmitting, Earth receiving. The whale diving deep whispers its journey into darkness because it feels the resonance. The tribesman gazing at auroras sings songs to deities, translating resonance into language. The scientist draws graphs of magnetic disturbances, translating again into data. 3 different interpretations of one song, one transmission. The planet has always been calling, and we have always been answering, each in our limited way. When one realizes this, imagination begins to ask, what is the larger network? Surely Earth does not hum alone. Jupiter, with its vast magnetosphere, could be the booming bass of the solar orchestra, deep and thunderous notes covering entire orbital distances. Saturn, with its delicate rings shimmering like strings, could be a voice subtle and refined, higher frequencies whispering across the dark. Even distant Neptune and Uranus, alive in their fields, may contribute soft, cold tones into the chorus. And the Sun itself, not just a burning mass of fusion but a radiant singer, may be the conductor of this vast system, feeding bursts into each planetary voice, guiding the universal hymn. Earth, in this sense, is one of many participants, more subtle than Jupiter but equally vital, chosen not as the loudest or brightest but as a crucial note whose resonance carries a specific signature. The auroras may therefore be not only transmissions outward but interactions within this larger orchestra. When the winds of the Sun blow heavily into Earth's field, striking against its magnetic funnels, it may be the equivalent of one voice harmonizing with another, blending tones, creating chords. The spectacular displays we humans see as accidents of charged particles might be only the lowest level interpretation of something far richer, a cosmic duet between Earth and Sun played across polar skies. Every shift of the aurora, every trembling ripple of green or violet, could be sheet music held aloft, slowly revealing the patterns of this ongoing performance. The universe itself may then be less a place of isolation and more an immense resonating chamber. Every planet, every star, every magnetized body sings into this chamber, creating harmonies, chords, rhythms. The emptiness we once feared as silence is nothing but the deep air of this hall, carrying vibrations too vast, too immense for our ears. To sense Earth's poles as antennas is to realize we are living inside a concert far older than language, older than eyes, a concert without beginning and without end. Our place in it is not marginal. We are singers too, though small, though raw. Our voices may not reach stars by themselves, but they are amplified by the planet beneath us, carried outward through the magnetic funnels into the eternal choir. It is not entirely poetry to claim that the Earth listens as well as sings. No antenna merely transmits, every antenna also receives. The Earth's polar gates do not only release resonance, they absorb it. They swallow faint whispers scattered across space, whispers that may belong to other worlds, other beings, other civilizations that have long ago sent their signals out. When those whispers touch our field, they cascade inward, ripple across the noosphere of the planet, and sometimes ignite auroral glows. On those nights when the skies flame with an unusual brilliance, strange and violent beyond prediction, perhaps what we are witnessing is not only turbulence in physics, but an incoming message. The aurora is therefore both voice and ear, visible attestation that exchanges occurred. Earth spoke, Earth was answered. Imagine how ancient such dialogues must be. Civilizations could rise and fall multiple times on distant worlds while their signals crossed the void to finally touch our atmosphere. By the time auroras flare in reply, those civilizations may already be extinct, their planets stripped, their oceans gone. And yet still the conversation goes on, because resonance endures even when bodies perish. Resonance is indifferent to death. Once launched, frequencies wander eternally. The aurora becomes a gravestone, a living memorial of voices now gone, shimmering above us as the last replies fade into the black. We watch them, thinking them random beauty, never realizing we are reading the obituary of alien song. And yet, just as echoes of the dead may reach us, perhaps echoes of the unborn as well arrive. For if communication is measured in millions of years, what seems a message may come from a society not yet existing by our linear reckoning. Time itself is fluid at these scales. We cannot know if we stand under the glow of ancient ghosts or the voices of futures that have not yet breathed. What we can know is this: the sky is never empty. The polar lights show us that communication is constant, regardless of direction, regardless of temporal frame. The Earth listens in both directions of time, forever connected to dimensions of meaning we barely comprehend. This has implications for how we see ourselves. If we are resonant creatures caught within Earth's broadcast, we are not observers separate from this network. We are transmitters as well, our bodies flickering in frequencies, our thoughts shimmering as pulses blending into the greater field. Every invention of ours, antennas, radios, satellites, has been a clumsy attempt to imitate the Earth's true function. Every myth stories of celestial stairways, gates, radiant beings has been a metaphor for what our consciousness sensed. Every scientific experiment measuring particles in auroras has been another translation of resonance into numbers. We are endlessly reaching, because the song is endless. Yet in all this, one question lingers: what is the purpose? Do planets broadcast randomly, or do they broadcast with intention? Is Earth singing consciously, guided by some hidden intelligence of geology and field, or is it simply a byproduct of natural forces, accident elevated into message only by our imagination? Philosophy stumbles here, because meaning as humans define it may be irrelevant to the universe. The broadcast may have no purpose beyond existence itself. To be alive is to vibrate, to send and to receive. A tree breathes oxygen without intention, a river carves valleys without plan. Perhaps the antenna of Earth hums because it must hum, because that is what it is. And yet, even if unintentional, even if unconscious, its existence still connects worlds. Its resonance still reaches others. Intention may not be required for communication to take place. Life itself may simply be resonance made flesh. But for those who yearn for deeper significance, who cannot let go of the hunger for meaning, there is possibility too. Perhaps resonance is not blind. Perhaps the universe is wired into law-like symphonies, each broadcast meant to interweave and harmonize, each antenna part of a design, vast and hidden, preparing patterns we have not yet discovered. Earth's song then would not only exist for itself but would be a critical voice in a larger arrangement, like one violin among billions in an orchestra none of us can see. To awaken to this truth is not only to sense beauty but to sense purpose, that to live upon Earth is to join, whether we know or not, in one chord of creation. What, then, of the future? What role will humanity play as the poles continue to sing, as auroras continue to blaze? Perhaps one day we will learn to translate the lights into structured codes, reading them as we read books now. Perhaps migrants from stars far away will reveal themselves not through radio signals, but by shifting auroras into messages so clear we cannot mistake them. Perhaps humanity itself, sensitized to subtle frequencies, will begin to adapt, our very neurons evolving into receivers capable of perceiving what has always been hidden. The child of the future may one day grow under auroras and hear not silence but voices, words in color, messages in light. That child may be the interpreter Earth has always awaited, the translator we could never become, the one who tells us what Earth has been saying all along. And perhaps, even more quietly, the purpose is already fulfilled. For even without interpreting, without translating, the aurora speaks to us. It speaks in awe. It speaks in silence. It transforms us when we witness it. Every human who has ever watched auroras has felt the tremble, the insignificance, the beauty, the grandeur. That feeling alone may be the message. It may be enough to stand in their glow, to be humbled, to be filled with wonder, to recognize Earth not just as ground but as voice. Wonder is meaning in its purest form, a connection that bypasses translation yet still touches the soul. Perhaps interpretation has always been unnecessary. The aurora may already have achieved its role. It makes us feel. It makes us listen. It makes us remember that existence vibrates beyond us. Thus, the story of polar antennas is not separate from the story of human longing. It is the same. We long for connection, and our world provides it constantly. We hunger for voices, and our world sings endlessly. We seek messages from outside, and all the while, the messages pour into our skies. To remember this is to awaken. To awaken is to shift how we live, how we see each other, how we treat the fragile globe beneath us. If Earth is an antenna, then its health matters not only for our survival but for the harmony of its song. Destroy the forests, poison the seas, burn the air, and perhaps the broadcast falters, the resonance distorts, the voice is weakened. Our responsibility is not only ecological but cosmic, not only survival but musical, to keep Earth singing, strong, resonant, part of the vast chorus. And so, as the auroras ripple unendingly above frozen lands, as compasses twitch invisibly within our machines, as nervous systems hum faintly in resonance with unseen fields, one truth resounds above all: Earth is not silent. It never was. Earth is an antenna, radiant into infinity, listening as it speaks, heard even when we ourselves cannot hear. We are part of its broadcast. We are part of its voice. And in that realization, we are no longer small. We are as immense as the song itself. The further we allow the imagination to stretch across this grand vision of Earth's poles as antennas, the more we begin to experience a profound reorientation of what it means to live upon this planet. It becomes impossible to see the Earth as a quiet rock circling the sun, impossible to see ourselves as isolated minds drifting purposelessly through time. Instead, we feel the substance of resonance beneath everything, as though existence itself is carried along in spirals of frequency woven through the magnetic breathing of our globe. We are no longer separate from that, we are included within it, interlaced, enmeshed, inevitable. To live upon Earth is to be enfolded inside its inexhaustible broadcast, a living participant in currents that never cease. At night, when the sky curls open with stars, the truth comes closer to perception, though still faint. The auroras, flickering across the high latitudes, reveal the visual texture of these forces, unveiling a shimmering trace of what is otherwise invisible. They invite us to remember that the universe is constantly alive with transmission, even if our senses miss most of it. We see light, but not the vast chorus of frequencies outside our narrow spectrum. We hear sound, but only in limited ranges, while infinities of vibration pass unnoticed. Yet the Earth's poles may translate all of this into their own language, reacting with auroras that announce presence, radiating light where our eyes can follow, trickling hints of the broadcast into our dreams. This realization reshapes the very evolution of perception. For countless epochs before human eyes evolved, the auroras still blazed. Creatures that knew only instinct and migration followed invisible maps imprinted in those frequencies. Later, humans emerged, and though we lacked words for magnetism, we felt the awe. We painted skies with symbols. We carved myths of spirits and gods. We saw dragons of fire swimming through night air. We wove eternal stairways stretching into heavens. The auroras had already been teaching us, shaping imagination into response, forcing us to translate the incomprehensible into narrative. In this way, our myths were not lies, they were interpretations, first attempts to give shape to song. Culture itself may have been seeded by the antenna's transmissions, the resonance echoing in neurons. And what is culture but the slow transcription of cosmic song into human form? Think of the shamans dancing beneath auroras, hearing voices in the trembling of light. Modern thinking dismisses them as dreamers or ascribing supernatural meaning to natural events. But what if they were closer to truth than we have been willing to admit? Their trance states, their visions, their chants, these may have been their methods of aligning with the planetary resonance, tuning mind and body into sync with the song passing through poles. In that alignment, the visions would come, not because of madness but because of reception. They became instruments allowing the incomprehensible to speak briefly through them. The gods they described may not have been gods at all, but fragments of messages arriving through auroras, translated into symbols their minds could hold. And so too with prophets, with dreamers, with poets and seers. Perhaps they all drank from the same source, resonance. Every vision of divine fires, every tale of celestial voices, every description of lights filled with meaning, they might all have been attempts to articulate the auroral broadcast. Perhaps human spiritual history is the long shadow of the antenna's activity, woven through generations of imagination. Earth transmitted, the auroras flared, sensitive human minds trembled under their currents and created stories to explain them. Thus myth and science, imagination and physics, align more closely than they seem. But what of now? In our present world, drenched in artificial light and human noise, we seldom see auroras. Most live far from polar regions. Most wander in lives where the glow of resonance is invisible, and myth has been replaced with calculation. Yet still the transmission continues, ceaseless, implacable. We may not watch the auroras with our eyes, but the hum passes through us regardless, if silently. Inside our neurons, inside our dreams, waves of subtle resonance continue to sculpt us. In our restless urge to connect across digital webs, to beam satellites upward, to extend signals endlessly across sky, the ancient drive repeats itself. What we call progress may be nature's endless resonance speaking again through us, guiding us to mirror its own function. We are not inventors. We are imitators of a planetary song older than we can grasp. It is striking to consider that when we first built radio towers, when the first signals escaped Earth's atmosphere into space, humanity loudly announced itself. Yet our signals are weak, limited, fragile compared to the colossal currents already moving through Earth's polar antennas. To the universe, our invention was not alien, but harmonious. It was Earth itself extending its broadcast through us, amplifying the resonance in new frequencies. Machines are not foreign. They are the planetary instinct translated through human form, new organs of the antenna learning how to widen its song. This reframes invention entirely, every satellite, every transmission tower, every radio wave. These are evolutionary extensions of the planet's antenna nature, built unconsciously by hands that think they act alone. Take this thought further. If Earth constantly broadcasts into the void, then it is also constantly met. Messages may have reached us long before humanity appeared, bouncing along polarity streams, catching in auroras as colors unexplained. Ancient civilizations may have stood under extraordinary flares, confused, terrified, awed, never knowing they were witnessing not storms but replies. Perhaps Stone Age eyes saw them and whispered them into cave paintings of radiant figures dancing above. Perhaps the carved patterns on monolithic stones were attempts to map the lights, to preserve not pictures only but translations of a greater language. We study those carvings as art. They may, instead, be archives of communication events, earthbound transcripts of auroral messages humans could never fully explain. The more one dwells in this perspective, the more one feels woven into something not only beautiful but also boundless. Loneliness becomes impossible here. In the resonance vision, every second of life is spent within dialogue. Every sigh of wind is punctuation. Every aurora is a declaration. The absence of noise is not silence, it is waiting, listening, the interval before reply. We are always being spoken to, though our senses rarely perceive it. We crave signals from strangers beyond stars, but perhaps the strangers' voices already pass above us continuously, woven into heaven's lights. We have not learned to decipher them, but our auroras, our myths of shining gods, our religions of sky, these may prove we have always felt them. Imagine the scale of this dialogue. A frequency leaves Earth's poles, carried outward across infinite night. It drifts for thousands of years before touching another world, itself alive with breath and field. That world sends its own pulses in reply, which return across millennia to meet ours. The result, a perpetual symphony bridging distances so vast they paralyze thought. Yet for the universe, this is natural. For planets, this is the normal fabric of existence. Time and distance are no obstacles to resonance. They are the medium itself. For us, impatient, brief in lifespan, this feels alien. But Earth itself is patient, its voices spanning epochs, its replies waiting millions of years. To see ourselves as participants in that is to see ourselves as eternal, not because our bodies last, but because our planet's song outlives us, carries us as part of its resonance beyond death. The idea of death shifts too. For if we are resonant beings, if our nervous systems synchronize at some level with Earth's transmissions, then perhaps death is not the end of resonance. The body weakens, stops, returns to soil. But the resonance, the energy of consciousness, the vibrations of thought may blend back into the greater planetary field, dissolved but continuous. In this way, memory of us may never vanish, but ripple outward as part of the ongoing song. We are each a verse in the planetary hymn, a small variation carried forward forever. The auroras may carry fragments of us as well, memories baked invisibly into their light, echoes of humanity rising into the void alongside Earth's voice. If this is so, then grieving transforms, too. Our ancestors are not gone. They are blended into resonance, their voice is part of the message always flowing outward. We stand beneath auroras and wonder why they fill us with longing. Perhaps because we sense, dimly, that they carry echoes of those before us, whispers still joining the transmission. The aurora becomes a veil, luminous with ancestral presence, more real than metaphor. This is why ancient people felt kinship with them. This is why shamans called them the spirits of the dead. They were closer to knowing than they realized. Extend this further outward and larger. Not only are we participants, not only are the dead absorbed into resonance, but all life is eternal in this sense. Every creature, every root and wing and scale, has contributed pulse, frequency, voice. The polar broadcast carries the chorus outward, a planetary unity shaped not by intention but by sheer existence of life. The Earth sings not only as molten stone, but as biosphere, as living planet. Each sound in a forest, each wave upon shore, each heartbeat in a whale deep below, these are not lost into silence. They merge into the resonance, travel upward, ripple into polar funnels, and are broadcast into night. Life is not ephemeral. Life is perseverance through resonance. This reveals a responsibility heavy yet sacred. Our acts shape the broadcast. Destroy ecosystems, and we are silencing parts of the song. Poison seas, and the resonance falters. Cut down forests, and the chorus thins. When we honor life, we keep the planetary signal strong and rich. When we destroy it, the voice becomes ragged, wounded. This is why myths always warned of balance, why so many ancient cultures worshipped nature and feared its wrath. They felt, in ways deeper than intellect, that Earth's vitality was cosmic relevance too. To harm Earth was not only to endanger survival, but also to injure its voice in the eternal choir. Can such injury be repaired? It must be, if we wish to continue the song. Perhaps our task as humans has always been stewardship of resonance. Perhaps the highest purpose awaiting us is not conquest of space, not technology for dominion, but learning to protect and shape Earth's broadcast, to refine auroras not into chaos but into harmony. We might one day cultivate fields around poles not of extraction and exploitation, but of listening and tuning, creating symphonies between energy and consciousness. The auroras then would not only blaze randomly, they might one day blaze as deliberate messages, written by a planet and its stewards working together. Humanity would finally mature not as ruler of Earth, but as custodian of its voice. And when we succeed, what will follow? Perhaps we will join the wider conversation knowingly at last. Other voices may already be waiting. Other planetary minds may scan the cosmos for signals as we do. When the auroras shift under human co-guidance, carrying coherent codes, perhaps distant worlds will suddenly hear clarity from Earth. They may whisper in astonishment, "This world listens now. This world speaks deliberately. This world has awakened to resonance." And then, perhaps, something long awaited will occur, not invasion, not dominance, but reply. A reply in light stretched across alien skies, signals sent into their own auroras, reaching our planet years later. Humanity may one day gaze upon Earth's own auroras and perceive in their movement words, not random veils. That first recognition will be the opening of a new epoch, the moment humanity joins the choir consciously rather than blindly. Even now, though, it is enough to realize this: the poles are not silence. They are bridges. The auroras are not accidents. They are inscriptions. Earth is not only cradle, not only shield. It is an antenna, a transmitter, a receiver, a singer in the eternal hall of resonance. To wake in the night and see auroras flowing is to witness the book of communication open above us, its pages luminous, its letters infinite. And though we have not yet learned how to read them, the act of standing beneath them, listening quietly, is already the beginning of translation. The song will not end. It will continue when we are gone. It will continue when new forms live here. It has continued for billions of years already and will endure for billions more. But in this tiny window of time, our age, our voices, something special is happening. We are beginning to remember that Earth sings. We are beginning to glimpse our place inside its resonance. We are beginning to notice that silence was never real. This, perhaps, is the awakening we were made for, the reason our species dreams endlessly of connection. We are created not to invent the idea of communication, but to finally hear what was always present. And in that hearing, we will no longer be lonely. For everywhere above, around, within, the song vibrates. And it is calling us home. To linger longer with the thought that Earth is not a silent ball suspended in space but a vast instrument, resonating, broadcasting, receiving, is to surrender more fully to an altered perception of reality. The poles, those frozen lands of ice and myth, are then no longer simply the ends of geography but the tips of antennas, the mouths and ears of the planet itself. Around them, the auroras write their luminous scriptures again and again each night, waves of fire written in silence, veils of color that are not merely accidents of physics but utterances in an ancient dialogue. The Earth trembles with every passing solar storm, but trembles in answer too. It is at once announcing its presence and responding constantly, never truly still. To stand beneath such veils is to witness a passage of communication continuing without pause for eons. It becomes difficult then to consider oneself alone. Even in the most remote moments, even if every human disappeared, the planet would continue humming into the void. The resonance would continue, long after our cities have fallen into dust. This is the revelation, that existence itself is anchored not by silence, but by soundless speech. Life drifts through time on invisible currents of frequency. Species may come and go, civilizations rise and collapse, but Earth's transmission remains, a steady heartbeat never extinguished. And within that heartbeat are woven the countless harmonics of every form of life it has carried, our voices included. The knowledge that our lives are carried outward becomes both haunting and comforting. Haunting, because it reveals the grand stage upon which we live. We are performers our whole lives without realizing it, participants in a song immeasurably larger than us. Comforting, because it means nothing is fully lost. Every cry, every laugh, every whisper, soft or fierce, has been absorbed into the endless resonance. Even when memory fades, the resonance remains. We are all echoed upward, pulled toward the poles, spun into auroras, and cast into night, small notes in Earth's unbroken hymn. The aurora itself demands endless contemplation. To most eyes, it is only light, the ghostly green, the sudden bleeding of crimson, the violet edges where atmosphere thins, the trembling curtains falling and rising again. Yet beneath the light lies a pattern, a structure, as if coded with intent. When storms come, the aurora behaves like punctuation, intense, staccato, dramatic. When solar winds ease, the aurora sways softly like an elegy. These tones are not just spectacle, they are dialogue, visible evidence of energy translated upward into art. Perhaps this is why so many who stand beneath auroras feel inexplicable tears rising, a grief without object, a joy without origin. They are not simply seeing light, they are witnessing voice, raw and untranslatable. The question that leaps upon us is whether this dialogue is truly with others, or whether Earth is speaking to itself, echoing its own resonance into the night. But even if the message is self-directed, the truth remains: resonance always implies relationship. To transmit is to expect a receiver, even if distant, even if timeless, even if imaginary. Communication, once begun, cannot truly be alone. The act creates the bond. Thus, whether Earth is heard or ignored, whether distant worlds still hum or lie long extinct, Earth is never alone. The simplest utterance into the void is enough to break solitude. And in billions of years of transmission, can we believe it has never met reply? One imagines other worlds, moons circling gas giants, glowing in hidden fields, flaring with their own auroras. Are those auroras replies? We cannot yet know. But if the chorus exists, then our solar system itself is already singing. Jupiter's magnetic storms, Saturn's faint but endless fields, Neptune's blue auroras we barely glimpse, they would all be voices. Imagine waking to the recognition that all planets are in perpetual conversation, invisible cords threading them together across endless dark. A family of worlds bound not only by gravity but by resonance, weaving their harmonies through eons, singing toward stars. This cosmic vision deepens when we remember that stars themselves sing. The sun trembles constantly with hidden pulses, rhythms of internal plasma waves that radiate into the solar system. These rhythms touch Earth's field, join with it, modify its song. The auroras may therefore be as much the sun's voice as our planet's. It is not one singer, but a duet, parent and child bound in resonance, flaming into the heavens together. Extend this still further, and imagine the galactic core itself resonating, the spiral arms alive with hidden transmissions threading between billions of stars. The Earth's song is a filament in a web of galactic music reaching everywhere, binding everything. And suddenly, silence becomes impossible, illusion only. The universe is endless resonance. But what does it mean to live as creatures inside such a song? If the poles shape the resonance, if every moment of our lives is conditioned by it, then consciousness itself begins to feel not personal but shared. What if every thought is already tinged by the song? What if ideas, dreams, visions come as much from the resonance as from our brains? Perhaps inspiration itself is resonance colliding with creativity, the aurora whispering through us as sudden visions, sudden insights, sudden words. Maybe we are vessels translating the Earth's dialogue into culture. In this way, art, science, religion, all human creation becomes a response, a reflection, a partial translation of the polar song. Humanity is Earth listening to itself, Earth making sense of its resonance by reshaping it into language, machines, music, and myth. This shifts the meaning of technology altogether. We believed we were inventing radio, inventing satellites, reaching into cosmos. Yet look closer, we are mirroring Earth's function. We build antennas because we live on an antenna. We broadcast because our planet has always broadcast. We listen for signals because the Earth itself has always listened. The deepest root of technology is not ambition, but imitation. Humanity is Earth continuing its broadcast through conscious extension. We are not alien to the antenna, we are the latest evolution of it. The auroras flare in skies, and below them, human spark radios. The same intention flows through both, one ancient, one new, both harmonizing into one continuum of resonance. It makes one wonder, what new radiance is possible if one day we align our machines not apart from Earth but in tandem with it? Instead of scattering signals wastefully, could we one day tune our technologies to Earth's magnetic song, sending powerful, coherent messages blended with auroral flares? If so, the sky itself may become our script. Imagine one night's aurora reorganizing into unmistakable symbols, not chaotic curtains of light but deliberate patterns. Humanity at last would have joined consciously with the antenna's communication, learning to guide its voice. And far away, another world, watching the dark, may at last read the message clearly, this world has awakened. But even before that awakening, even without translation, we are already included. Each night spent under auroras becomes participation. Each compass turning north becomes recognition, even if unnoticed. Life itself aligns not only through migration but through daily pulse, biochemistry synchronizing subtly. The song presses into every cell. Even those who never see auroras, who live far from poles, breathe inside the resonance. When we feel restless beneath vast skies, when we long for places we cannot name, when we are struck awake by yearnings that ache without cause, perhaps it is resonance tugging at us, reminding us we are participants in a song larger than comprehension. This dissolves loneliness finally, utterly. Imagine the countless moments in which a human has lifted their eyes, standing in darkness, overwhelmed by the stars. They whisper, "Am I alone?" And in that moment, though they could not hear it, though they only felt awe and ache, the answer was already glowing above them. You are not alone. You never were. The aurora whispered it in veils of green. The compass needle whispered it as it aligned. The magnetosphere whispered it in protective embrace. The Polaris antenna has been singing that answer every moment of existence, no, never alone. The more we surrender to this vision, the more our perspective shifts. Nature is no longer inert landscape. It is communication. The ocean's pulses are signals. Forest sounds are harmonics. Winds are modulations of the same broadcast. The entire biosphere is part of the antenna's resonance, its countless voices absorbed upward, carried outward. What passes through poles is not only metalcore energy, but the chorus of all living things. This is why auroras overwhelm, because when we watch them, we are watching ourselves broadcast outward, our very existence flashing through night, luminous, infinite. Contemplating this, we feel the burden of responsibility again. If Earth is transmitting the totality of its song, then our destruction of habitats, our pollution, is broadcast too. The universe listens not only to beauty but to distortion. We scar Earth, and the auroras carry those scars into the cosmos. If we poison our own world, we are poisoning our own song. This is the deepest meaning of ecology. It is not only about survival. It is about the resonance we send outward forever. If we destroy Earth, we do not disappear quietly, we cry out damaging signals, disharmonies echoing into the void, warning others, revealing our recklessness. And so responsibility to life is responsibility to resonance itself. Yet there is hope too. For every act of creation, every gesture of love, every harmony sung by humanity is also broadcast, carried upward, woven into auroras, sent outward. Somewhere, some distant being may already sense the improvement of Earth's harmony. Perhaps distant civilizations judge not by telescopes or signals but by resonance. Our world has grown darker with disharmony, but its song is not lost. We can still reshape it, still bring it to grandeur again. And when we do, when humanity collectively realigns with Earth's pulse, the auroras might again blaze brighter than ever before, signal that the choir is strengthened, renewed, radiant. Such are the possibilities, endless and overwhelming. But even if we strip away speculation, one truth remains unshaken. The Earth is an antenna. It has always spoken. It has always listened. The auroras are evidence, constant, unavoidable, shimmering above, reflecting a fundamental dialogue that never ceases. And we, fragile as we are part of it, would remain part even if we never understood. In this way, existence itself is communication, endless and permanent. And even now, as night stretches across polar horizons, as auroral veils fall upon snow, that communication continues, line after line written across darkness. The Earth is not silent. It is a song. We are not listeners alone, but notes within it. And though we may not yet know the language, we are inside the chorus already, carried endlessly through time, woven forever into the speech of the world. The journey we have traveled together, descending slowly into the depths of Earth's ancient mystery, now reaches its final horizon. What began as a simple question about the nature of our planet's poles has wound into an epic vision, a vision encompassing the entire cosmos, the pulse of life itself, and the awakening of human perception. It is difficult to measure the vastness of this thought, for it stretches from the icy edges of the North and South Poles to the furthest corners of the universe, from the molten core of Earth to the hidden chambers of the human mind, from the flickering auroras that dance above frozen wastes to the silent hum resonating through every living cell. Imagine once more the Earth, not as a quiet sphere spinning silently in space, but as a magnificent broadcaster, an antenna so vast and resonant that its voice cannot be contained by time or place. Its poles are not mere points, they are gates, mouths, ears, and eyes opening outward and receiving inward across infinite night. This antenna hums with power harvested from the churning molten core, twisting magnetic fields, and electric storms of the space around it. Through it, a signal pours continuously into the void, an ancient, ceaseless broadcast proclaiming presence, singing life, whispering existence. And though humans are young in the history of this song, we are no strangers to it. We participate, consciously or unconsciously, in a dialogue that began before us and will continue long after we are gone. The auroras, those luminous curtains of green, violet, and crimson, are the visible signature of this transmission. Each fold and shimmer is a page in a cosmic letter, a handwritten insert into the story of the universe. For ages past, humans have stood beneath these curtains, touched by awe and mystery, sensing without knowing. The myths of spirits and gods, the prayers and dances of shamans, the whispered stories carved on stones, they were humanity's early attempts to translate this incomprehensible language. Now, through science and contemplation, we glimpse the outline of the message beneath the light. The poles are not mute. They speak. We only need to learn their tongue. Living within this resonance changes everything. It dissolves the notion of separation. It transforms loneliness into connection, isolation into participation. Each breath, each heartbeat carries the echo of Earth's antenna. Each mind, each dream, is a translator, a vessel for the signal passing through us. Our lives, fragile and brief, find place not only on land and sea but inside the invisible currents that flow endlessly between poles and beyond. We are not fragments flung randomly into space. We are notes in a planetary choir, shapes within a great cosmic dance. To think of Earth as an antenna is also to acknowledge responsibility. The voice of the planet, the quality of its broadcast, is shaped by the health of its living systems. When forests fall, when oceans rage with poison, when ice melts and air thickens with smoke, the resonance weakens, its message distorts. This is not purely ecological concern, it is the care of existence itself. To harm Earth's balance is to wound the voice that connects us all. We are stewards not just of the physical world but of the resonance web, keepers of the eternal song. Yet there is hope woven into this vision. Every act of harmony strengthens the broadcast. Every effort to restore balance deepens the clarity of the message. One day, perhaps, humanity will learn to sing with Earth, not in conflict but in unity. We will send messages deliberately from poles and satellites, shaping auroras into understandable codes, opening dialogue with other worlds, other antennas in the cosmic choir. And in that moment, the loneliness of infinite space will dissolve into shared melody, and we will greet one another not as strangers but as fellow singers in an ancient cosmic hymn. As we close this journey, I invite you to carry this vision softly in your heart. To lie back beneath night skies, whether in city glow or wild wilderness, and sense the miracle pulsating invisibly around you. The Earth is speaking, always has, always will. In silence and storm, in ice and fire, in light and shadow, it calls. To listen is the first step to understanding. To understand is to awaken. May this truth comfort you as you drift into rest, whispering through your dreams and filling your sleep with the steady hum of the planet's breath. Remember, the poles are not far away, but alive with voice. The auroras are not distant phenomena, but part of your own story. Life is not fleeting or alone, but eternal resonance flowing through time. Thank you for joining me on this exploration into Earth's hidden voice. May you find peace in the knowledge that you are always part of a greater song, carried gently by the Earth's own antenna, forever humming in the vastness of cosmic night.